My family made a shocking decision and left my daughter in another country. They flew home believing it was the right choice. As her mother, I didn't fall apart. I took responsibility, and by the end of the day, the truth caught up with them. But before I begin, please like and subscribe to the channel. And we'd love to hear which part of the world are you joining us from. Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The lake stretched out like a mirror beneath the pre-dawn sky, its surface undisturbed by wind or current. Rowan Hale stood at the kitchen window of the cedar cabin, her bare feet cold against the worn linoleum, watching the first hint of light touch the water. The coffee maker behind her gurgled and hissed, filling the small space with a bitter, familiar scent that had marked her mornings for as long as she could remember. She reached up and gathered her dark hair with both hands, twisting it into a practical knot. Her fingers found the rubber band on her wrist without looking, muscle memory from years of getting ready in the dark, in silence, in spaces where she'd learned to make herself small and efficient. The band snapped into place. Her hands, she noticed, didn't shake. They never did. Not when her ex-husband had screamed. Not when the divorce papers arrived. Not when she'd moved herself and Brenna into this cabin with nothing but 2 suitcases and a box of legal documents. The coffee finished brewing. Rowan poured it into a white ceramic mug, chipped along the rim from too many mornings, just like this one. She didn't add sugar. She'd stopped pretending to like sweet things years ago. Behind her, a chair scraped against the floor. Rowan turned. Brenna sat at the kitchen table, knees pulled up inside an oversized gray hoodie, her thin arms wrapped around her shins. At 13, her daughter was all angles and contradiction, trying to look older while curling into herself like she wanted to disappear. Her fingers traced the wood grain of the table, following the same path they'd followed 100 times before. "You ready?" Rowan asked. Her voice came out steady, neutral. She'd practiced that tone until it became natural. Brenna's head lifted, freckles scattered across her nose and cheeks, relics of last summer's sun. A small scar cut through her left eyebrow, pale and thin, earned 3 years ago when she'd crashed her bike into a mailbox while learning to ride without training wheels. Rowan had driven her to the emergency room, held her hand through 5 stitches, and never once told her she'd been going too fast. "Grandma says the flight's early," Brenna said. She tried to smile, tried to look excited about the trip. The effort showed in the tightness around her eyes. Rowan recognized that expression. She'd worn it herself once. During her marriage, she'd learned to arrange her face into whatever shape kept the peace, to perform enthusiasm or agreement or compliance, while her real thoughts stayed locked away somewhere safe. Seeing it on Brenna's face made something cold settle in her chest. She crossed to the table and sat down, the mug warm between her palms. "You don't have to go." "I want to," Brenna said quickly. Too quickly. "Do you?" Brenna's fingers stilled on the table. She looked out the window toward the lake, where the light was spreading across the water in shades of gray and pink. "Grandma planned it. She said it would be good for me. Educational." Rowan took a sip of coffee. It burned her tongue. "That's not what I asked." A moment passed. A loon called from somewhere across the water, its cry sharp and lonely. "I don't know," Brenna admitted. Her voice dropped lower. "She talks about you sometimes. When you're not there. She says you shelter me too much, that I need to see the world. And what do you think?" Brenna looked at her mother then, really looked, and Rowan saw the question hiding beneath the surface, the one her daughter couldn't quite ask. "Are you okay with me leaving? Will you be okay without me?" "I think," Brenna said carefully, "that I want to know the family, the ones overseas. I want to understand where we come from." Rowan nodded once. That was honest, at least. She could work with honest. She stood and walked to the drawer by the sink, the one that stuck and required a sharp tug to open. Inside, beneath old receipts and expired coupons, was a small prepaid phone, still in its plastic packaging. She'd bought it 2 weeks ago, the day after Darlene Pike had called to announce the trip, her voice bright with certainty that Rowan would agree. Rowan opened the package and powered on the phone. She programmed her own number into it, then one other, Tamsin Lowe, the only lawyer she trusted, the only friend from high school who'd stayed in touch after Rowan's world had collapsed. She walked back to the table and pressed the phone into Brenna's palm. Her daughter's hand was small, the fingers thin and cold. "If anything feels wrong," Rowan said quietly, holding Brenna's gaze, "you call me?" "Not them. Me. It doesn't matter what time it is. It doesn't matter where you are. You call and I answer." Brenna's fingers closed around the phone. "I know, Mom. I'm serious, Brenna. If your grandmother says something that makes you uncomfortable, if your uncle disappears and leaves you somewhere, if anything happens that makes your stomach feel wrong, you trust that feeling. You call." "Why wouldn't I just?" "Because your grandmother thinks she knows better than you do, better than I do, and she'll tell you not to worry, not to bother me, that everything's fine when it isn't." Rowan's grip tightened slightly. "So I'm telling you now. Trust yourself. Call me." Brenna nodded. Her eyes were wide, understanding without fully understanding. Outside, gravel crunched beneath tires. Rowan released her daughter's hand and walked to the window. A silver sedan pulled into the narrow driveway, expensive and clean, completely out of place against the weathered wood of the cabin. Darlene Pike stepped out first, her white hair styled into stiff curls, her pantsuit crisp despite the early hour. Everything about her was arranged, controlled, calculated for effect. Rowan's brother emerged from the driver's side. Clay Pike moved with the lazy confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences, his hands shoved into the pockets of designer jeans, his smile easy and meaningless. At 38, he treated responsibility like a hobby, interesting in theory, easy to abandon when it became inconvenient. Darlene's knock on the door was brisk, impatient. Rowan opened it. She didn't smile. Neither did her mother. "Ready?" Darlene asked, looking past Rowan to where Brenna was gathering her backpack. "We need to stay on schedule. The flight won't wait." "She's ready," Rowan said. Clay stepped forward, reaching for Brenna's suitcase. "Hey, kiddo. Excited?" Brenna managed a nod. Rowan watched them load the car, watched Brenna climb into the back seat, watched her daughter's face turn toward the cabin one last time. Their eyes met through the window. Rowan raised 2 fingers in a small wave. Brenna lifted her hand, pressed it flat against the glass. Then the car reversed, turned, and drove away down the dirt road. Rowan stood on the porch until the sound of the engine faded completely. The lake remained calm, its surface smooth and honest in the growing light. Birds called from the trees. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and cold water. She went back inside, closed the door, and poured herself another cup of coffee. The silence felt different now, emptier. She'd given them permission to take her daughter across an ocean. She'd signed the papers Darlene had brought, the ones that said Rowan consented to the trip, that she understood the itinerary, that she trusted her family to care for Brenna. But she hadn't signed the other document, the one Darlene had slipped into the folder at the last minute, hidden beneath flight confirmations and hotel reservations. The one that granted temporary guardianship, extended decision-making authority, the legal right to determine where Brenna stayed and for how long. Rowan had noticed it immediately. She'd pulled it from the stack, read it twice, and set it aside without signing. Darlene had frowned. "It's just a formality. In case of emergencies." "Then you won't need it," Rowan had replied. Now, standing alone in her kitchen, Rowan opened her laptop and pulled up her email. She scrolled back 3 months to a message she'd sent to herself from a public computer at the library. An email containing photos, scanned documents, a copy of that and signed guardianship form, dated and time-stamped. She closed the laptop. Then she waited. By noon, Rowan's phone was silent. She cleaned the kitchen, wiped down surfaces that were already clean, organized the small pantry that didn't need organizing. Her hand stayed busy while her mind tracked time zones, flight durations, connection windows. She knew exactly when they should have landed, exactly when they should have cleared customs, exactly when someone should have sent a message saying they'd arrived safely. The phone didn't ring. By 2 o'clock, the silence had weight. Rowan stood at the counter, staring at her phone like she could force it to light up through will alone. She picked it up, set it down, picked it up again. Her thumb hovered over Darlene's contact information. No, she wasn't calling first. She wasn't giving them the satisfaction of seeming anxious, worried, weak. She made lunch instead, a sandwich she didn't eat, a glass of water she forgot to drink. At 4 o'clock, her patience cracked. She called Clay. It rang 4 times, then clicked to voicemail. His voice, cheerful and careless. Hey, you've reached Clay. Leave a message, or don't. Either way. Rowan hung up without speaking. She called Darlene. The phone rang and rang and rang, then stopped. No voicemail, no explanation, just silence. Rowan set the phone down carefully on the table. Her jaw ached. She was clenching her teeth without realizing it, the same way she used to during her marriage, when her ex-husband would promise to come home and then disappear for hours, leaving her to explain his absence to a confused, disappointed child. She didn't panic. Panic wasted time. Blurred thinking made people stupid. Instead, she opened her laptop and logged into the airline account. She'd set it up when Darlene first mentioned the trip, using an email address her mother didn't know about, booking the tickets herself and then letting Darlene believe she'd arranged everything. It had cost Rowan 2 weeks of grocery money, but information was always worth the price. She navigated to the flight status page, found their flight number, clicked refresh, arrived, on time. Her stomach tightened, cold and hard. She refreshed again, then again, as if the page might change, might reveal some technical error, might explain why 3 people had landed in a foreign country and not one of them had bothered to send a message. Rowan closed the laptop, stood, paced to the window. The lake outside was darker now, choppy with afternoon wind. Clouds gathered on the horizon, bruised and threatening. She picked up her phone again and dialed the airline's customer service number. A recorded voice walked her through options. Press 1 for existing reservations. Press 2 for flight changes. Press 3 for... She pressed 0 until a human answered. Thank you for calling. My name is Kevin. How can I help you today? I need to verify a flight, Rowan said. She kept her voice calm, professional. My daughter was traveling with family members. I want to confirm she's safely arrived. I'd be happy to help with that. Can I have the confirmation number? Rowan rattled it off from memory. Keyboard clicks on the other end. A pause. Okay, I see the reservation. 3 passengers. 1 adult, 1 minor, 1. Did they all board? Rowan interrupted. Another pause. Longer this time. Ma'am, I'm showing that all 3 passengers checked in and boarded the outbound flight, yes. What about the return flight? The return flight isn't for 2 weeks, according to... I understand, but I need to know if my daughter is scheduled to return. If her seat is still booked. More typing. The sound of someone breathing through their nose. Ma'am, I'm seeing some notes here. Let me transfer you to our international desk. They might have more information. What kind of notes? I really think you should speak with. What kind of notes? Kevin's voice changed, became smaller, more uncertain. There's a flag on the miner's ticket. It says the return has been cancelled. The kitchen felt colder. Cancelled, Rowan repeated. The word tasted wrong. Yes, ma'am. It shows that the adults traveling with her informed our staff that she would be staying behind with relatives. They submitted a change request at the gate. Rowan's fingers tightened around the phone. At the gate. Yes, ma'am. before boarding the return flight. My daughter is 13 years old. She's a minor, and you let two adults cancel her return ticket without speaking to her legal guardian. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, "Ma'am, I apologize, but the adults had documentation," they said. Rowan hung up. She set the phone down on the counter, very carefully, as if it might explode. Her hands were still steady. That was good. She needed steady hands for what came next. She walked to the window and stared out at the lake. The wind was stronger now, turning the water rough and dark. Trees bent and swayed. The dock creaked against its moorings. They had left her. Her mother and her brother had taken Brenna across an ocean and decided, without asking, without calling, without any legal right whatsoever, that she would stay there, with people Brenna barely knew, in a country she'd never visited, and they'd done it at the gate, at the last possible moment, when Brenna was already confused, already uncertain, already too far from home to fight back. Rowan closed her eyes, counted to 10, opened them again. The anger that filled her was cold and precise. It didn't burn. It clarified. She turned from the window, walked to the bedroom, and pulled a metal lockbox from beneath her bed. The key was taped to the underside of her nightstand drawer. She unlocked the box and lifted the lid. Inside were documents, years of them, text messages she'd screenshotted and printed, emails her mother had sent, full of criticism and control disguised as concern, financial records showing how Darlene had tried to manipulate Rowan's divorce settlement, old voicemails, the cruel ones, saved and transcribed, evidence. Rowan Hale had never thrown anything away, not when it might matter, not when it might protect her daughter. She carried the box to the kitchen table and began to sort through it, organizing everything by date, by relevance, by potential legal value. At the bottom of the stack was the unsigned guardianship form. Rowan had photographed it the day Darlene brought it, before she'd refused to sign. On the back of her copy, in Darlene's handwriting, was a note. "This gives U.S. authority if she resists." Rowan photographed the note again now, higher resolution, better lighting. Then she opened her laptop and began to compose an email. The sun was setting when Rowan called Tamsin Lowe. The phone rang twice. Then a familiar voice, warm and cautious. "Rowan? It's been a while." "I need you to listen," Rowan said. She stood on the dock, watching the sky turn red and orange above the tree line. Not comfort me, not offer sympathy, just listen. A pause. Then, okay. Rowan told her everything. The trip, the unsigned form, the canceled return flight, the note on the back of the document. She spoke in clear, factual sentences, the kind that would hold up under cross-examination, the kind that didn't allow for interpretation or doubt. When she finished, there was silence on the line. "That's abandonment," Tamsin said finally. Her voice had changed, gone professional and sharp, across international borders, and they didn't have legal authority. "You never signed the guardianship form." "I know. Rowan, this is serious. They could face criminal charges, child endangerment, kidnapping, potentially." "Good." Another pause. "Good." "They made a choice," Rowan said. She watched the sun slip lower, staining the water red. "They decided I didn't deserve a say in my daughter's life, that I was too soft, too protective, too whatever to make the right decisions. So they made them for me. What do you want to do?" "I want Brenna home. And I want them to understand that actions have consequences. This could destroy your relationship with your mother. It already was destroyed. I was just too polite to admit it." Tamsin breathed out slowly. "Okay, I'll need everything you have. Documents, emails, call records. The works. I'll send it tonight. And Rowan, once we start this, we can't stop halfway. You understand that?" Rowan looked at the lake. The water was dark now, almost black, reflecting nothing but the dying light. "I understand," she said. She ended the call and walked back to the cabin. Inside, she packed a bag, Practical clothes, toiletries, her laptop, chargers, a folder of documents she'd already organized. She moved efficiently without hesitation, muscle memory from years of leaving in a hurry, of needing to be ready to run. But she wasn't running this time. She was hunting. Before she left, she checked her email one last time. Still nothing from Darlene or Clay. No explanation, no apology, no acknowledgement that they'd made a unilateral decision that violated every boundary Rowan had ever set. Their silence told her everything she needed to know. They thought she'd accept it, that she'd call and yell and eventually calm down and agree that yes, maybe Brennan needed time away, needed to learn independence, needed to be toughened up by people who thought love meant control. They thought her silence over the years, her careful politeness, her refusal to engage in screaming matches, meant she was weak. They were wrong. Rowan opened a new email, addressed to both Clay and Darlene. She typed one sentence. You made a choice. Now live with it. No explanation. No threats. No emotion. Just fact. She pressed send. Then she picked up her bag, locked the cabin door behind her, and drove into the night toward Duluth, where Tamsin was already making calls, already building a case, already setting in motion something that couldn't be stopped. The living room of Darlene Pike's house was exactly as Rowan remembered it, floral furniture arranged with geometric precision, end tables polished to a shine, photographs on the walls showing a family that had never quite existed the way they were posed. Everything in its place, everything controlled. Darlene sat on her couch with a cup of tea balanced on her knee, her posture perfect, her expression serene. She looked like a woman who'd won something. She needed discipline, she said to Clay, who stood by the window with his phone in his hand, scrolling absently. Rowan coddles her. Always has. That child needs structure, boundaries. She needs to understand that the world doesn't revolve around her feelings. Clay nodded without looking up. She'll learn independence. Exactly. Sometimes you have to make hard choices for children. They don't understand what's good for them. That's what parents are for. And Rowan. Darlene sipped her tea. Rowan will calm down. She always does. She'll send a few angry messages, make some noise, then realize we were right. That girl needs exposure to real family, real values, not just that isolated life they live in that cabin. She seemed pretty serious on the phone yesterday. She's always serious, stubborn like her father. Darlene set down her teacup with a soft click. But she knows we mean well. Deep down she knows. The doorbell rang. Clay frowned. You expecting someone? Darlene shook her head and stood, smoothing her blouse as she walked to the door. She opened it with her practiced smile already in place. 2 police officers stood on her porch, both in uniform, both with expressions that were polite but firm. Darlene's smile faltered. Darlene Pike, the taller officer asked. Yes. We need to speak with you about a minor left abroad without parental consent. The color drained from Darlene's face. Behind her, Clay's phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. Rowan's flight landed at dawn. She hadn't slept, hadn't tried to. Sleep required letting go of control, and control was the only thing keeping her functional right now. She'd spent the overnight flight reading through documents on her laptop, cross-referencing dates, building timelines, making sure every piece of her case was airtight. The airport cafe was nearly empty. Rowan ordered black coffee and sat at a table by the window, watching planes take off and land, watching people reunite or say goodbye, or rush past with their lives contained in rolling suitcases. She made her first call to the U.S. Embassy at exactly 9 a.m. local time. The woman who answered sounded tired. Embassy services. How can I direct your call? I need to speak with someone about a minor U.S. citizen who's been abandoned abroad. A pause. Abandoned. My daughter was brought here by family members who canceled her return flight without my knowledge or consent. I'm her legal guardian. I never authorized her to stay. Hold, please. Elevator music. Then a different voice, male, more alert. "This is Consular Officer Bennett. Can you explain the situation?" Rowan explained. She used the same clear, factual tone she'd used with Tamsin. Name, age, circumstances, timeline. She didn't elaborate, didn't editorialize. Just facts. "And you have documentation proving guardianship?" Bennett asked. "Birth certificate, custody agreement from my divorce, my daughter's passport application, which I signed as sole legal guardian, and a guardianship form that my mother attempted to have me sign, which I refused. I have photos of that refusal dated before the trip. Send everything to the email address I'm about to give you. We'll need to verify your daughter's location and welfare. She's with distant relatives. I have their address. Send that too." Rowan wrote down the email address, hung up, and began attaching documents. Each one had been scanned at high resolution. Every signature visible, every date clear. She hit send. Then she called Tamsin. "Tell me you got some sleep," Tamsin said by way of greeting. "Tell me you filed." "Filed and served. Your mother and brother received notice 2 hours ago. The court hearing is scheduled for next Thursday." "That's too long." "It's the fastest I could get. Judge Martinson is handling it personally. She doesn't like child endangerment cases." Rowan allowed herself a small exhale. "Good. The police visited them yesterday. Took statements. Darlene's lawyer called me this morning, trying to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "A private resolution. They want to bring Brenna home, quietly, avoid formal charges, keep this out of court." "No. I told them that. They're going to push harder. Your mother is scared, Rowan. Really scared. She's hired an expensive firm out of Minneapolis. I don't care if she hired the Supreme Court. We're going to trial." Tamsin's voice softened slightly. "Rowan, I have to ask. Are you sure? This is going to get ugly. Family court is one thing, but criminal charges. They abandoned my child in a foreign country. They lied to airline staff. They made a 13-year-old girl believe her mother had agreed to leave her behind." "Yes, I'm sure." "Okay." A pause. "How are you holding up?" Rowan looked out the window at the unfamiliar city, at the sky that was the wrong shade of gray, at the people speaking languages she didn't understand. "I'll hold up," she said. "I always do." She ended the call and made the next one. The phone rang 4 times before Brenna answered, her voice small and uncertain. "Mom." "Hey, baby." Rowan's chest tightened. "How are you?" "I'm okay. I'm with Annalise and Uncle Peter. They're nice, but—" Her voice trailed off. "But what?" "They keep asking me if I want to stay. Like really stay. For the school year. They say Grandma thought it would be good for me." Rowan's jaw clenched. "And what do you say?" "I say I want to come home. But they keep talking like it's already decided. Like you already agreed." "I didn't agree to anything, Brenna. I want you home." A shaky breath on the other end. "Grandma called yesterday. She said you were overreacting. That this is just an extended visit." "It's not." "I know." Brenna's voice cracked. "I knew when they canceled my ticket. I heard them talking to the gate agent. They thought I was in the bathroom, but I was right there. I heard them say I'd be staying." Rowan closed her eyes, pictured her daughter standing in an airport, realizing she was being left, unable to do anything about it. "I'm getting you out of there," she said. "The embassy is involved. I'm working with them right now." "When?" "Soon. Maybe as early as tomorrow. Can you hold on until then?" Yeah, I can." "Brenna, listen to me. If anyone tries to tell you that this was my idea, or that I wanted you to stay, you don't believe them. You understand. This was not me." "I didn't believe them anyway," Brenna said quietly. "You always come for me. Even when I was little and Dad would forget to pick me up, you always came." Rowan's throat tightened. "Always. no matter what. They talked for another 10 minutes, about small things, normal things. Brenna described the house she was staying in, the food she'd eaten, the awkward dinners where no one knew what to say. Rowan listened and made appropriate sounds and tried to ignore the fury building in her chest. When they finally said goodbye, Rowan sat very still at the cafe table, her coffee cold and untouched. Her phone buzzed. A text from Clay. "We need to talk. This is getting out of hand." Rowan deleted it without responding. Another buzz. "Darlene this time. You're being irrational. We can discuss this like adults." Delete. Another. "You're going to regret this." Rowan stared at that one for a long moment. Then she typed back. "No, you are." She blocked both numbers. By late afternoon, Brenna's location had been confirmed by embassy staff. A consular officer visited the house, spoke with Brenna privately, verified her identity and welfare. Within hours, arrangements were being made for her return. Rowan received the call at 3 p.m. "Ms. Hale? Officer Bennett. Your daughter will be on a flight tomorrow morning. We've coordinated with the family hosting her. They've agreed to cooperate." Did they have a choice? A pause. Let's say we made the alternative options very clear. "Thank you. You should know. Your mother has been calling the embassy repeatedly. She's claiming there's been a misunderstanding, that this was supposed to be a longer visit, that you were aware. I have documentation proving otherwise. We know. We've seen it. But she's persistent. She always is." Rowan ended the call and walked out of the cafe into the city. She had 24 hours to kill. Normally, she'd use the time to explore, to distract herself. But distraction felt wrong right now. She needed to stay sharp, stay focused. She found a quiet park and sat on a bench, watching people pass. Couples holding hands. Parents with small children. Old men feeding pigeons. All these normal lives, continuing like the world wasn't upside down. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Rowan. Clay's voice, rough with something that might have been desperation. "Don't hang up. How did you get this number?" "I called your lawyer. She wouldn't give it to me. So I called every Rowan Hale in Minnesota until I found you." That's called harassment. That's called trying to fix a mistake before you blow up the entire family. Rowan stood and walked deeper into the park, away from the crowds. "There's nothing to fix, Clay. Brenna's coming home tomorrow. Everything else is already in motion. Mom's losing her mind. She didn't mean for this to happen. She thought. I don't care what she thought. She was trying to help. She thought Brenna needed. She thought she had the right to make decisions about my child without asking me. That's not help. That's control." Clay was quiet for a moment. Then, "You always think you're the only one who knows what's right." "No, I think I'm the only parent in this situation. Brenna is my daughter. Mine. Not Darlene's. Not yours. And neither of you had any right to decide her future without me. We were giving her opportunities. You were punishing me. This has nothing to do with Brenna. It's about you and Mom thinking I'm weak because I won't let you run my life anymore. That's not." "Yes, it is. And you know it. Every conversation with her is about what I'm doing wrong, how I'm raising Brenna incorrectly, how I need to be firmer, stricter, more like her. This trip wasn't about education or bonding or exposure to family. It was about proving a point, showing me that I don't have the final say. You're paranoid." Then explain the guardianship form she tried to get me to sign. Silence. "You didn't know about that, did you?" Rowan asked. "She didn't tell you she tried to get legal authority over Brenna, temporary custody, the right to make medical decisions, educational decisions, living arrangements. She wanted all of it." "That's—" Clay's voice faltered. "That's not what she told me. I have a copy, with notes in her handwriting. Notes that say, "This gives us authority if she resists." So tell me again how this was about helping Brenna. Clay didn't answer. "You're being used," Rowan said. "The same way I was used. The same way Brenna was used. Mom doesn't see people as individuals. She sees them as pieces to move around until everything looks the way she wants it to look. And you're too comfortable to notice." "I notice," Clay said quietly. "Then why did you help her?" "Because she's our mother. Because saying no to her it's exhausting. It's easier to just go along. It's easier until it isn't. Until someone gets hurt. Until a child gets abandoned in a foreign country because you were too tired to push back." Another pause. Then, "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," Rowan said. "I don't need anything from you, Clay. I never did. That's what none of you understand. I built a life without you. I protect my daughter without you. And I'll win this case without you. Rowan." She hung up. A jogger passed her on the path, breathing hard. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades that reminded her of home, of the lake, of mornings when the only thing that mattered was making coffee and getting Brenna to school on time. She wanted that simplicity back. But first, she had to finish this. The next morning, Rowan stood in the airport arrivals area, watching travelers stream through the automatic doors. Every face that wasn't Brenna's made her heart contract a little tighter. Then she saw her. Brenna walked through the doors with a backpack slung over one shoulder, her hair messy from the flight, her eyes scanning the crowd until they found Rowan. For a moment, neither of them moved. They just looked at each other across the distance, confirming what they both already knew. Then Brenna ran. Rowan met her halfway, pulling her daughter into a hug that felt like breathing again. Brenna's arms wrapped around her waist, tight and desperate, and Rowan felt the girl shaking slightly, releasing tension she'd been holding for days. "You came," Brenna whispered against her shoulder. "Always," Rowan said. "Always, baby." They stood like that for a long time, ignoring the people flowing around them, ignoring the announcements and the noise and the world that kept moving regardless. Finally, Brenna pulled back. Her eyes were red but dry. "Can we go home?" "We can go home." They collected Brenna's luggage, one small suitcase that seemed impossibly light for a trip that was supposed to last weeks, and walked out to the parking lot. The drive back to the cabin would take hours, but neither of them minded. They had time now. They had each other. Halfway home, Brenna spoke up from the passenger seat. "Did Grandma really think you'd agreed?" Rowan kept her eyes on the road. "No, she knew I didn't. She just didn't care." "Why would she do that?" "Because she thinks she knows better, and because she's used to people doing what she wants." Brenna was quiet for a moment. "Are you going to forgive her?" "No. Ever." "No." "Good," Brenna said softly. "Because what she did was wrong." "Yes, it was." Another stretch of silence. Trees passed outside the windows, thick and dark against the afternoon sky. "Uncle Clay texted me," Brenna said. "He said he was sorry, that it got out of hand." "Did you reply?" "No. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. You don't owe him anything." Brenna nodded, staring out the window. He wasn't mean or anything. He just didn't stop her. He went along with everything. Sometimes that's worse than being mean. Mean you can fight against. Indifference just lets bad things happen. They drove the rest of the way in comfortable quiet, the kind of silence that didn't need filling. When they finally pulled up to the cabin, the sun was setting over the lake, turning the water into liquid gold. Rowan parked, and they both just sat there for a moment, looking at the place that had been home for 3 years now, the place they'd built together from nothing. "I missed this," Brenna said. "Me too." Inside, Rowan made hot chocolate while Brenna unpacked. The familiar sounds of home, the creak of floorboards, the rattle of the old heater, the distant call of loons on the water, settled around them like a blanket. But even as they settled in, As they fell back into routines, Rowan's mind was already on the court hearing. 3 days away. 3 days to prepare her testimony. 3 days before Darlene would have to answer for what she'd done. Rowan opened her laptop and began reviewing documents one more time. She wasn't done. Not yet. The courthouse in Duluth was old stone and modern glass, a building trying to be two things at once. Rowan sat in the waiting area outside the courtroom, her hands folded in her lap, her posture calm. She wore a simple navy dress and minimal jewelry. Professional, reliable, the kind of mother judges trusted. Tamsin sat beside her, flipping through a folder of documents for the third time that morning. "You ready?" Tamsin asked quietly. "Yes. They're going to try to paint you as vindictive, petty, using the court to punish family disagreements. Let them try. They'll say Brenna was safe, that you overreacted. She was safe because the embassy intervened, not because they had any intention of keeping her safe." Tamsin nodded. "Good. Remember that. Stay factual. Don't let them make you emotional." The courtroom doors opened. A bailiff stepped out. "Pike versus Hale. We're ready." Rowan stood. Her legs were steady. Her breathing was controlled. Inside, the courtroom was smaller than she'd expected. Judge Martinson sat at the bench, a woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes. Darlene and Clay sat at the defense table with their lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked like he billed by the minute. Darlene's eyes met Rowan's across the room. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Regret? Fear? It was gone too quickly to name. The hearing began with opening statements. Darlene's lawyer spoke smoothly, painting a picture of a misunderstanding, a family disagreement blown out of proportion, a grandmother who only wanted what was best for her granddaughter. Then Tamsin stood. "Your Honor, this case is not about family disagreements. It's about the intentional abandonment of a minor child in a foreign country without parental consent. The defendants had no legal authority to make decisions about the minor's welfare or location. They acted in direct violation of parental rights and federal law regarding child safety." Judge Martinson nodded. "I've reviewed the preliminary documents. Ms. Hale, you may present your evidence." Rowan walked to the witness stand. She raised her right hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat down. Tamsin approached. "Ms. Hale, can you explain the circumstances of your daughter's trip?" Rowan did. She explained the original plan, the unsigned guardianship form, the sudden change to Brenna's return ticket. She spoke in clear, even sentences. No emotion, just facts. "And you never consented to your daughter staying abroad?" Tamsin asked. "No. I explicitly refused to sign any documentation that would allow that." "Can you tell the court what happened when you discovered your daughter's return ticket had been canceled?" Rowan recounted the calls, the airline's confirmation, the embassy intervention. She kept her voice neutral, factual. Then Tamsin turned to the judge. "Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit A." She handed over the guardianship form, the unsigned one, with Darlene's handwritten note clearly visible. Judge Martinson read it slowly. Her expression didn't change, but something in her posture sharpened. "This gives us authority if she resists," the judge read aloud. "Mrs. Pike, is this your handwriting?" Darlene's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client." "Is this your handwriting?" the judge repeated. Darlene's face had gone pale. "Yes, but the context." "The context is clear. You attempted to secure legal authority over a child whose mother had already refused to grant it, and when that failed, you proceeded anyway." "It was supposed to be educational," Darlene said, her voice rising. "She was safe. She was with family. Rowan is overprotective. She doesn't let that child experience anything." "Mrs. Pike, your opinions about Ms. Hale's parenting are not relevant to this hearing." What is relevant is that you took a minor child across international borders and abandoned her there without parental consent. I didn't abandon her. I left her with relatives. Did you inform Ms. Hale of this plan? Silence. Did you have her permission to change the child's return flight? More silence. Your Honor, Darlene's lawyer interjected, there's been no harm done. The child was returned safely. This is a civil matter that could be resolved through mediation. The child was returned because her mother involved the U.S. Embassy and forced intervention. Left to your clients, she would still be abroad. The lawyer sat down. Judge Martinson turned to Rowan. Ms. Hale, what outcome are you seeking? Rowan stood. I want full custody without visitation rights for my mother or brother. I want a formal restraining order preventing them from contacting my daughter without my explicit permission. And I want it on record that what they did was not a misunderstanding. It was intentional. Your Honor, the lawyer started. Surely that's excessive. Excessive. Tamsin cut in. They left a 13-year-old child in a foreign country. They lied to airline staff. They had no legal authority and proceeded anyway. What part of that seems excessive to address? Darlene stood suddenly. She's my granddaughter. I have rights. No, Judge Martinson said quietly. You don't. Not anymore. The room went silent. Here's what's going to happen, the judge continued. I'm granting Ms. Hale's request for full custody. The defendants are prohibited from any contact with a minor child without written permission from Ms. Hale. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the county prosecutor for potential criminal charges. Darlene's face crumpled. You can't. I can't, and I am. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Rowan stood perfectly still for a moment, processing. Then Tamsin's hand was on her shoulder, squeezing gently. You won, Tamsin whispered. Rowan looked across the courtroom at her mother. Darlene was crying now, her lawyer trying to comfort her, Clay standing uselessly to the side. Rowan felt nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just a cold, clear certainty that she'd done what needed to be done. She picked up her bag and walked out. The consequences unfolded quickly. Child Services opened an investigation within 48 hours. Officers visited Darlene's home. Interviewed neighbors, reviewed documents. The process was invasive and humiliating, exactly as it was designed to be. Clay's employer found out about the case through a mutual connection. The story spread through his office. Successful businessman abandons niece in foreign country. It didn't matter that he wasn't the primary instigator. Association was enough. Within a week, he was asked to resign. He called Rowan from his car, his voice tight with barely controlled rage. Are you happy now? I lost my job. My reputation is destroyed. All because you couldn't let this go. I didn't destroy your reputation, Rowan said calmly. You did that when you helped abandon a child. It wasn't abandonment. It was... Say it again. See if it sounds more true the 10th time. You're enjoying this, watching us fall apart. I'm not enjoying anything, Clay. I'm just not stopping it. You're vindictive, cruel. You're using Brenna as a weapon. Rowan's voice went cold. No, you used Brenna. You and Mom used her to make a point, to punish me, to assert control. All I did was refuse to pretend it didn't happen. We're family. Then you should have acted like it. She hung up. Darlene tried calling next, from different numbers, desperate and scattered. Rowan blocked every one. Then came the letters. Long, rambling pages filled with justifications and accusations. Darlene wrote about how Rowan had always been difficult, always defiant, always determined to do things her own way. How she'd married the wrong man, raised Brenna wrong, lived in that isolated cabin like she was too good for everyone else. Rowan read the first letter. Then she fed it into the shredder and blocked the address. A month later, the criminal investigation concluded. The prosecutor offered Darlene and Clay a plea deal: probation, community service, mandatory parenting classes. No jail time, but a permanent record, a mark that would follow them. Tamsin called to tell Rowan. They took it, she said. Signed this morning. Good. How are you doing? Really? Rowan stood at the window of the cabin, looking out at the lake. It was early winter now. Ice was forming along the edges, thin and fragile, but growing stronger each day. I'm fine, she said. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Tamsin sighed. You won, Rowan. Completely. They can't contact Brenna. They have criminal records. They've lost their standing in the community. You got everything you wanted. I didn't want any of this. I wanted them to respect me, to respect my role as Brenna's mother. That's all I ever wanted. I know, but they couldn't, so this is what happened instead. They talked for a few more minutes, then said goodbye. Rowan set the phone down and continued staring at the lake. Behind her, Brenna came into the room. Was that Tamsin? She asked. Yes. Is it over? Yes. Brenna came to stand beside her mother at the window. They looked out at the frozen landscape together. Do you ever think about calling them? Brenna asked quietly. Grandma and Uncle Clay? No, not even to say something, to explain. They know what they did. Explaining won't change that. So, that doesn't mean she gets to hurt you and pretend it's love. Rowan felt something loosen in her chest, some tension she hadn't realized she was carrying. You've grown up, she said quietly. I'm trying to. They stood together in silence, watching the lake darken as clouds moved in. Are you going to forgive them? Brenna asked. Eventually. Rowan considered the question. She thought about all the years she'd spent making excuses for her mother's behavior, accepting criticism, trying to be good enough, perfect enough, compliant enough to earn approval that never came. She thought about the unsigned guardianship form, the note, the canceled ticket, the way Darlene had looked at her in court. Not apologetic, not ashamed, but angry. Angry that Rowan had dared to fight back. No, she said finally. I don't forgive people who test my child to prove a point. Brenna nodded. She seemed satisfied with that answer. Outside, the first snow began to fall, soft and quiet, covering the dock and the trees and the frozen edge of the lake. Inside, the cabin was warm, safe, theirs. Spring came slowly to Minnesota. The ice retreated from the lake inch by inch, revealing dark water underneath. Birds returned. Trees budded. The world woke up. Rowan and Brenna settled back into normal life. School, work, evenings by the lake. They didn't talk about Darlene or Clay. Those names became ghosts, present in memory but powerless to haunt. One afternoon in late April, Rowan received an email from an address she didn't recognize. The subject line read, Family Gathering. She almost deleted it. Then something made her open it. It was from a cousin on her father's side, someone she hadn't seen in years. The email was an invitation to a summer reunion, casual and friendly. At the bottom was a note. I heard about what happened with your mom. I'm sorry. That must have been awful. But I wanted you to know you're still family to us. We'd love to see you and Brenna. Rowan read it twice. Then she showed it to Brenna. Want to go? She asked. Brenna looked surprised. Really? After everything? They're not Darlene and Clay. They're different people. But they're related. So are we. That doesn't define us. Brenna thought about it. Will Grandma be there? I don't know. Probably not. But even if she is, we don't have to talk to her. Okay, Brenna said slowly. Then yeah, I'd like to go. Rowan replied to the email that evening. The reunion was held at a state park 3 hours south. When they arrived, Rowan felt her stomach tighten with familiar anxiety. But then her cousin appeared, a woman named Iris, older now but still warm, and pulled her into a hug. Rowan, God, it's been years. It has. And this must be Brenna. Look at you. You look just like your mom did at your age. Brenna smiled shyly. They spent the afternoon meeting relatives Rowan had forgotten existed. People who asked about the cabin, about Brenna's school, about normal things. No one mentioned Darlene. No one asked intrusive questions. It felt like breathing. Late in the day, as the sun started to set, Rowan stood by the lake with Iris. I wasn't sure you'd come, Iris said. After what happened. You heard. Everyone heard. Darlene told her version to anyone who'd listen. But Iris paused. My sister works in family law. She saw the court documents. The real ones. Rowan said nothing. You did the right thing, Iris continued. What she did was inexcusable. I wanted you to know that not all of us think you overreacted. Thank you. Family is complicated, but it doesn't have to be cruel. Rowan looked out at the water, watching the light change. No, it doesn't. They stood together in comfortable silence. Nearby, Brenna was laughing with a group of younger cousins, playing some game that involved running and shouting and complete unself-consciousness. Rowan watched her daughter, saw her free and unguarded and happy. This was what she'd fought for. Not revenge, not vindication, just this moment, this freedom to exist without fear. That night, back at the cabin, Rowan sat on the dock with her feet dangling over the edge. The water was calm again, reflecting stars she couldn't name. Behind her, the cabin lights glowed warm and yellow. She could hear Brenna inside, moving around, getting ready for bed. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I know you won't read this, but I needed to say it anyway. I'm sorry. I was wrong. D. Rowan stared at the message for a long time. Then she deleted it and blocked the number. She didn't feel cruel doing it. She didn't feel victorious. She just felt done. The lake was still. The night was quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a loon called out, lonely and certain. Rowan stood and walked back to the cabin, where her daughter was waiting, where their life continued without apology or explanation. They thought leaving her behind would break a mother. What it did was remind Rowan Hale exactly who she had always been, and why no one should ever mistake her silence for weakness.